please excuse the lateness of my reaction towards Chelsea's reveals. Hell the fuck yeah, dude! Hi guys and welcome to the circus. So, Chelsea has been revealed, and I haven't shared my thoughts yet. Well, I was just really busy doing a big project for a different fight, but I still made the time to playtest her a bunch of times, make a pretty good deck list for her, and with that, I can safely say that, oh my god, man, it's so good! Chelsea's so good, guys, holy shit. I really can't express enough how good the supports are. Chelsea, my girl is amazing. Her skill is amazing. It's like everything I've ever wanted for her, especially when it regards to the prediction that I made before, which is it's either Chelsea's gonna be a better version of Carol or Chelsea's gonna be a better version of Alice. Well, it went in the route that Alice is gonna be replaced, and it makes the most sense because they reprinted Carol, which is still the primary target for this deck. Well, you can argue that you can make Chelsea a standalone deck, but adding Carol to the mix, making more axle circles, making more attacks, and thinning out your deck, searching your stuff is so amazing now. So let's talk about the girl herself and the following supports that got revealed along with her. So first of all, Chelsea. Chelsea has both Vanguard and Rearguard skills. Her Vanguard skill is after the battle it attack, you CB1 and you call 2 Workroids from Soul, and they get plus 10 if your opponent is on a grade 3. Her Rearguard skill is after the battle she attacked, you move her along with a unit on your opponent's board to Soul. You heard it right, boys? You have now a grade 3 that goes to Soul without counterblast. Thank you so much, Bushi, for making this unit. Thank you. The reason why this is so good is that your rewrite mechanic now requires you at least 1 counterblast. The removal is just a cherry on top. It's just a form of control to your opponent's board. Maybe you can remove intercepts during your attacks because sometimes your attacks only requires 5k shields. Speaking of attacks, man, I can't stress enough how many attacks you can make with this deck. So since Chelsea has a Vanguard skill, as I predicted, she is now your best finisher of the deck, or at least your final ride during your turn when you get the reride. We somehow predicted that we will get power as well, but instead of just giving it passively, they gave it to the only units that Chelsea calls from Soul after her attack, which is in my opinion really balanced because you make a ton of attacks every single turn, especially if we have a lot of CB and a lot of grade 3s on board. Having more passive power is gonna make it somewhat unbalanced because somehow you can get over at least 2 defensive triggers consistently, which is not that healthy, especially it being a clan selection deck. This Vanguard skill is really good, but remember, since it goes off after her attack, your drive check for her won't affect the called units, which is why they gave the plus 10 to those units to compensate if you check a front trigger. Also, even if you didn't check anything, they still get plus 10, so it's a way to get over defensive triggers quite consistently. Chelsea is just overall really amazing, man. It's so goddamn good. I am just really happy that we got this unit. Even if it's kinda late, but it's kinda like the perfect timing as well. I just never had this much fun playing Nightmare Dolls ever since it was released, ever since I got the cards, and right now I just had a huge upgrade, and oh my god, I just can't stress enough how much I fell in love with this clan and how much I fell in love with this deck even more now than I had before. Oh, I forgot to even mention the 2 other units. So let's move on to the grade 2, which is Nightmare Doll Marissa. So her skill is on place from hand on Vanguard or Rearguard circle. You put a card from your hand to the Soul, you check top 7, and then you fetch yourself 2 Workroids that are not grade 2. Do you know how amazing this skill is, guys? Do you know how good, how amazing this skill is? This is basically a plus 1 in a sense, right? Because you minus 1 from hand and then you get 2 cards from your deck. But as I see it, it's actually kind of a plus 2 and somewhat like a plus 3. The reason is you check top 7, which is a very nice number to work with. You check yourself 2 cards that you can fetch. Even if you check 1, it's still fine. But if you check 2, awesome. And you put a card from your hand to the Soul. Do you know what cards you need in the Soul? First of all, you can run Jills, You can run Marions, you can run Ediths and Rhodas and put them in the soul to make use of them during your battle phase and make huge columns with Edith and Rhoda, reset columns with Jill, and maybe you can make use of your Marions in hand so that there won't be a waste of a unit. On top of this, you search out cards from the top 7 cards. What can you search? You can search your Beverlys, you can search your Ediths, you can search your Toscas, you can search your Marions under grade 1s. Under grade 3s, however, you can search your Chelsea, your Alice, and your Carol, which is amazing. This is actually what we call the goddess, the new goddess of Nightmare Dolls. Narissa is amazing, amazing, amazing unit. This is an amazing unit. The balance part is it is on plays from hand only, and it is amazing. The fact that this card doesn't have a CB is bonkers, and it's really, really well designed because you spam a lot of CBs during your reride, so it makes a lot more sense because you now have more opportunities to use your CBs on your reride mechanic rather than using it on other units just like Ellen. Also, the balanced part about this is that you can't search grade 2s, which is like your Jills and other copies of Marissa, which is like if you can search Marissa using Marissa, that would be, I would say, it's kind of broken because you can consistently search out your pieces just by having more copies of Marissa and a cost to pay in your hand. You know, I've always wanted a top 7 search for Nightmare Dolls or any deck except for Harry. I never got it until this point, so I am so thankful that they made this into a top 7 searcher. That is really, really amazing. And it's like it doesn't have any cost or whatsoever. The units that you put in the soul are the ones that you need in the soul anyways. Finally, we get to our grade 1, which is Nightmare Doll Abigail. She is amazing as well. I have never complimented a set this much. This is such an amazing set. It's so good, man. It's so goddamn good. Abigail is a unit that lets you consistently ride up to your next turn. What I mean is you ride another grade 3 next turn. Her skill is on place on Vanguard Circle, you soul charge 1, which is like meh. It's cool. You get to soul charge, you get to put more units in the soul, you get to deck thin a bit. And if you get to high roll something you need in the soul, like a Jill or a Rhoda or Edith, that's amazing. And the most amazing part is her rear guard skill. At the end of your turn, you retire this unit, you countercharge 1, and then you get a grade 3 from your soul and add it to your hand. Yes, boys and girls, you heard it right. We now have a countercharger, boys. We now have a countercharger. It's not a battle phase countercharger like I wanted before. We now have lesser cost for our reride mechanic, so it doesn't bother me anyway. The most amazing part here is you get to fetch a grade 3 from your soul to your hand. What do you want to fetch? Your Carols, obviously, or your Chelsea if you need more Chelseas in hand. Most of the time, I fetch a Carol, but sometimes, occasionally, I want to fetch a Chelsea because I already have a copy of Carol in hand, and I want to keep the second copy in Soul so that I can reride next turn quite consistently. And the added Chelsea will be another piece to perform your reride, so makes more sense. Sometimes I forget to use her skill because I've always had a mindset on counter-charging on battle phase using Comicality Chimera, but, you know, I gotta work on what I have right now because it's just an amazing skill. The fact that you need to retire her is actually quite fine because you now have less cost, so countercharging 1 makes you ensure that you can reride once more next turn. Overall, these 3 workeroids, these 3 girls right here in front of you, the representation of the highest point that Nightmare Dolls can ever get in Standard. These 3 are just amazing, man. Thank you so much, Bushiroad. Thank you so much to the designers. They are amazing. Artwork-wise, skill-wise, play style, everything is amazing. I have no complaints even because this is just everything that I've always wanted for Nightmare Dolls. Again, guys, again, this is it. This is amazing. Do you know how many attacks I can perform in a turn? I have no idea. I can't count. I literally can't count how many attacks I can do with this deck. As long as they don't check defensives or as long as I check fronts, I can still keep attacking as long as I have CBs and have the pieces for it. I have no idea how much. So maybe on the next couple of fights that I'm going to showcase to you guys on this channel, I'll maybe add a attack counter on the side because you can be the judge for yourself how many attacks you can make with this deck. If you already play tested a lot of times with this deck, you can maybe just count it, and on average I believe it's less than 15. No, that's too much. Maybe a little bit more than 10 or less than 10 at the very least, but at its peak I performed like 12 attacks or 11 attacks and they all went through. And it's so freaking good. It's so good. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit hyped. I always get hyped when it comes to Pale Moon, especially with my favorite archetype, which is Nightmare Dolls. Leave it down in the comments below if you want to suggest something or you want to give your thoughts about the new Nightmare Dolls. If you pick up Nightmare Dolls right now, you will have a ton of fun. You will be so high when you play this because you just attack, 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 and then you slowly watch your opponent's hand deplete at the end of the turn, and it's just amazing, overall amazing. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.